Hello, I'm Daniel Sketchley.
And I'm Callum Byrne.
We've been friends for more than 10 years, sharing lifelong passions such as film and music,
But most importantly, football, through the ups and the downs.
the celebration and the heartbreak.
However, he's a blue nose.
And he's a villain.
This is the Second City podcast. Hello and welcome back to the Second City podcast. We're here for our first episode of 2024. And this is going to be like a little bonus episode. It's going to be different to pretty much everything we've ever done because big news has come out of the West Midlands today, hasn't it, Dan? Because Wayne Rooney has been sacked.
Yeah. Yeah, first of all, Happy New Year, I guess, everyone.
Yeah. What a way to
Blues.
start.
Yeah, Blues hitting the ground running as living up to our reputation with some managerial drama by the morning of the 2nd of January. Um, but yeah, as Callum says, it's just going to be probably a bit of a quick, bit rough around the edges episode. We just thought we'd kind of quickly get it out there. Uh, we're not really going to bother with like what we're wearing and all that this week. If you are interested, I'm wearing a Birmingham City One Life, One Club jumper. I don't know what you've gone for, Cal, but
I've gone for a player sweatshirt from a couple of years
oh,
ago.
nice, nice. Yeah, but we're not going to sort of get like an old kit and go through it in depth and stuff because obviously, as Callum says, huge story this week. I haven't even bothered for those watching on YouTube with my background dressing. We just had to be really quick and get on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously the big news this morning was that Rooney has gone. Um, yeah, Matt. So obviously we lost 3-0 to Leeds yesterday. So Rooney was appointed on the 11th of October, 2023. He described in his first interview with the club, Birmingham could be one of the biggest stories in football in the next few years, and he said that he could, um, he had a lot to offer Blues, and Blues could have a lot to offer him, or something to that effect. Paraphrasing slightly, but and yeah, 83 days later, just 15 games and 2 wins later, yeah, Rooney's been sacked. He, in terms of time period, so like, put it into perspective. Let's remember like what a huge story it was when he came in. Like
Yeah.
Wayne Rooney, England's record goal scorer of all time, one of their highest capped players ever, one of the greatest English footballers ever, one of the greatest Premier League players ever. Um, and I,
It's widely been accepted that he'd done a pretty good job in the championship at Derby, despite them getting relegated.
yeah, in the circumstances, yeah, and I was also I didn't want Eustace to go. I liked John Eustace. I thought it was harsh that he'd gone, but I was more than willing to get on board with the Rooney thing and try and get behind it. And because I was like, the opportunity, if it works out, is great. And I also always thought, whilst I didn't want Eustace to go, I was not against Rooney coming in. I thought Rooney, of everyone you're going to get in, I thought Rooney would be interesting. But yeah, 83 days later, in terms of time period, he's our shortest serving manager ever. Um, so yeah, he's gone now. We lost 3-0 to Leeds yesterday, 15 games, 9 losses, only 2 wins, I think is correct. And even then,
Sheffield Wednesday and Cardiff, wasn't it?
yeah, the only win I went to was the Sheffield Wednesday one, and that was also wasn't great. It was like not great. So my feeling on it all is, um, it's probably it's a surprise. It is a surprise at the same time. Like if I don't know if you were surprised to see the news this morning. It is a bit of a surprise because I did think I actually thought the board would keep all the powers that be. I thought they would keep backing him with January coming up, and I thought it's a really crucial time. But it probably shouldn't be that surprising because I think from what you hear at Leeds yesterday, it sounded like it was a point of no return almost. Apparently, the fans really lost it with him. I saw the video of him kind of going over to clap the fans, and then I saw his post-match interview, and he just looked like a broken man. If I'm honest, he did not look. I felt personally, I felt quite bad for him. I kind of wouldn't. I don't know, just on a human level, like
Yeah.
obviously, but at the same time, I can't blame. It probably is the right decision, is what I'm saying. It almost certainly is because it's been. I feel like there was no coming back. I felt like he was probably not going to win the fans back. Um, and the players looked. The last few games have reminded me of like the Zola era. Um, the players looked completely lost, completely not up for the fight at all. And so Rooney had 15 games, which is how many games are in the season? 46. So we had a third of the season effectively, and we got 10 points in that time. Um, that is like relegation form. And then some. That's like bottom of the table form.
Well, I mean, he took over and you were in sixth, and what are you now, 21st,
20th,
something like that? That is
20th.
a
Yeah, I think 20th.
huge drop. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can't argue with it. I think uh, what I find amazing as well is the we all said when it happened the Zola thing, and we all made comparisons to it, and it's literally gone exactly the same. Like it's meant like the only difference is obviously Rooney's been sacked. Zola had to resign. Zola had a bit longer. But it's mad. Like there's so many parallels there. Like a popular manager being sacked for a name to come in after a recent takeover. That guy wins 2 games and then is sacked with the club dropping from sixth to like somewhere in the 19th or 20th. It's crazy how similar it's gone. The big difference this year, I suppose, is that we've got half the season left to try and remedy it. Um, my real feeling though is like I think it makes sense. As I say, I feel like Rooney just had no coming back from it. And I think the risk of us spending or trying to bring some players in, spending a bit of money in January, the board clearly felt like they couldn't trust, or it just had to be done now. Um, and they're maybe a bit fortunate in a sense, even though it's not ideal timing. At least it's not in like a month's time where we've just spent some money and brought some players in. Hopefully, someone good can come in, and hopefully in this month they can do what they can. But my main feeling though is the whole thing's made me quite sad. I think the whole thing's a huge shame. I think it's just a shame. It didn't work. It was a disaster. It was at the point where it just wasn't going to work. Like I just couldn't see him turning it around. We had a brief point a few weeks ago when it looked like it was picking up, and then since then it's got to the worst it's been on the pitch. But yeah, I just remember like trying to get on board with it, and I feel like, especially on here, I've kind of backed Rooney quite a bit. I've never like called for him to go or anything. I just don't really. That's just not who I am personally. I don't think. Although I was delighted when Stephen Kenny got left the island job. To be fair, but
Yeah.
as I think you were as well. But no, with Blues, I've never really been one for someone to call for someone to be sacked and whatever. So I just think the whole thing's a
Absolutely.
huge shame, and I just think it's a huge shame it's not worked out. I wanted it to work, um, but just as the weeks have gone on, it's just become more and more obvious that it is just Zola Mark II. Yeah, really lives with a 13% win record. I find it amazing, like crazy that if you the Zola thing was mad, and it's such a crazy thing that he had 2 wins. He left with 2 wins. How do you manage that as a permanent manager to have 2 wins? We must be the only club in history to have 2 managers win only win 2 games in their history and leave. That's 2 permanent managers. Like I think of any other manager at any other club that's left with only 2 wins before leave. Um, so for us to have had 2 of them is crazy. But so yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I'm surprised personally that the statement mentioned him and Cole Robinson, I believe. Um, didn't mention Ashley Cole and John O'Shea. I thought they'd be. I don't know. I was surprised by that, and I'd imagine whoever comes in next, I'd imagine will bring in their own coaching staff rather than have them with them. Who knows? But I was
Maybe they'll
surprised that
stay
they.
just to sort of steady the ship until the next manager comes in.
I guess I think it said Steve Spooner's going to take over in the meantime, though. Who's one of the I think he's like under 21s coaches or something. But uh, yeah, it's just I don't know. Kind of, I was gonna say I'm lost for words. I'm clearly not, but been rambling on for ages here. But yeah, just a shame. But I can't really argue with the decision. It probably had to happen. Um, and I just hope whoever comes in next, yeah, in a way, in a way, like at least the board have done something about it, had identified it, and done something about it. Like the Zola thing, they were just never going to make the change. It would have gone down if Zola hadn't resigned. And I've said this before, at least I feel like everything else at the club is there. The foundation is there. I feel like everything behind the scenes feels a lot better. So hopefully we can get the right man in and kick on from here. But yeah, yeah, literally just 83 days, 15 games. You just couldn't write it really. I think even the most pessimistic of fans didn't think that would be the case. Um, and Bruni obviously put a statement out and he said, it's going to take me a while to get over this setback, and it's going to take a bit of a break from management. Um, yeah, I just yeah, as I kind of personally feel like just on a human level, I feel pretty bad for him. That must be very hard to kind of take and so on. But yeah, as I say, it's probably the right decision and had to happen.
It's a bit
Um,
embarrassing for him as well, isn't it?
exactly, yeah, it's embarrassing, 100%. And there's kind of whether you think of his time at Derby or his time at DC, um, like I said, I think I maybe even said on here, like this is kind of his first job, but there's no excuse really. Like he's got a good back in, he's got a good team. I stand by that. I think the team is good enough. It's certainly not fifth worst in the league. Um, and so yeah, this is like a real on him. It's a real. This could be very damaging for his career. Um, I don't know what you think from the outside looking in.
I think the comparisons to Steven Gerrard's time at Aston Villa are
Yeah,
very similar in terms of great player, maybe not a proven manager, although done well before, but a bad job very much will could end that career. Steven Gerrard's probably going to lose his job in Saudi anytime soon. So Wayne Rooney might be the man they look at for that. But I think if you're comparing Gerrard and Rooney, I think we probably waited too long to sack Gerrard because I'd have sacked him at least a month before he went. So I think if the board at Blues were doubting whether he was the man, I mean, 2 wins was pitiful. Then you know, why would you back him in January if you don't think he's going to last long after that? And it makes sense to make the change now. The big worry I would say is that we were talking about the Rooney thing for about a month before it happened, just as a joke because there was the rumor. So
yeah.
that had been in the pipeline for a long time. So it depends if they got anyone lined up now to replace Rooney, or is it going to start a 3-week search to find a manager during the transfer window?
Yeah, true. And obviously, I kind of mocked the Gerrard thing a lot because he was a disaster, in my opinion, at Villa. Um, as kind of
Oh
cringeworthy as
yeah.
this might sound, as cringeworthy as this might sound, we've got to hope that whoever comes in next can be like obviously you bounce back with Emery, and it's proof that you can take the same players essentially and have a huge turnaround with them. We've got to hope that the next appointment is that that impact of appointment, and can completely change it. Because we said we have good players. I think we do have good players, not complete players, not league-winning players, but we have good players. But on the Gerrard thing as well, it's very interesting how the England sort of I'll use quote marks for the golden generation because I think they proved that they weren't the golden generation, but they've all struggled as managers. Like Rooney, obviously now has to go in that camp. Gerrard, Lampard, Gary Neville at Valencia was a complete disaster.
Oh,
Um,
disaster.
uh, yeah, so have any of I don't think
Are
any
we
of them have
throwing Phil
really.
Neville in there?
Yeah, screw it. Yeah, sorry, Phil Neville in. Yeah, I don't think any of them have really achieved. Obviously, Ashley Cole's at Blues currently as a coach. I feel like none of them have really kicked
John
on as
Terry was a
managers.
coach as well.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. Although I feel like he's not really had like a failure as such. I suppose. I guess. Um, but yeah, so this is where we go from here. It'd be interesting if they do get someone in now because we have a cup game at the weekend against Hull, and then it's a full week until the next league game. Um, so obviously take the cup seriously. I always take the cup seriously, but it would kind of at least be almost. We've now got almost 2 weeks till our next league game, so it'd be interesting to see if they can get someone in the next few days. But I'm not. I'm not sure where we go next. Ultimately, in terms of next manager, I don't know what you think. Is there anyone who you think would be from the outside looking in a good fit potentially?
I mean, do I think it'll happen? Absolutely not. But obviously, there's been a lot of loose rumors with Steve Cooper. I don't think that'll happen because I think Crystal Palace has probably got his name all over it come the end of the
Yeah.
season. But you want someone like that who went into Nottingham Forest when they were bottom of the league and got them promoted. You know,
Mm.
you aren't that far away from the relegation zone, but you're also not that far away from the playoffs. If you get that right man in, you never know. You just never know. I mean, our promotion season, we went on an insane run. Fulham went on an insane run the year before. You know, anything's possible. But in terms of managers, I mean, who's really out there? You
I,
know,
I agree.
uh,
I agree that Cooper would be ideal. He's literally done it with Forest. Literally got taken a team from the bottom of the championship and dragged them all the way up. But even if Palace doesn't happen, I feel like any Championship club that changed manager right now would have Steve Cooper on their list. Um, which is why I think it would be ambitious. It'd be a coup if we got him. And also, Wayne Rooney doesn't scream sexy as well. We know, like we did an episode called Wayne Rooney Screams Sexy, but Wayne Rooney definitely doesn't scream sexy. If he doesn't, Steve Cooper definitely doesn't scream sexy. Goodness me. But but I would absolutely take him as a manager because I think he's a very good manager. I wouldn't be shocked if it's like a Tony Mowbray or something. He's available, very experienced
He
in the
he
league.
he would be a great shout. He did a great job at
Yeah,
Sunderland.
yeah, and Blackburn as well. He did a pretty good job at West Brom. Did a good job at Celtic for the most part, from what I remember. I think he's one of them because he's not a name, 'cause he's not glamorous, because he's a bit of a, he doesn't maybe get the credit he deserves. Um, but yeah, I won't be. I think
Is it
something like
more
that wouldn't
likely
shock
though
me
that you
too
end up with a
much.
Neil Warnock?
I don't think so.
Or
Surely not.
I'll throw a curveball out to you, Dan. Steve Bruce.
No, no, not Steve Bruce. No, I'm not interested in Steve Bruce. If any former Blues manager, obviously some of the rumours going around are Eustace and Rowett potentially coming back. I, there's a rumour going around that Eustace would be interested in it. Would I personally take Eustace back? Yes. Do I think that will happen? No. I cannot see the board in a million years, or whoever in a million years, deciding that a man they got rid of less than 3 months ago is the man to come back. I just can't see that in a million years. Um, Rowett is maybe a different kettle of fish because obviously he was ousted by a different board, or different owners. He wouldn't know any, or wouldn't have worked for any of the people that are in the show now. I don't think. Um, but I just don't see that happening either. I feel like I would take right back as well, but I feel like a lot of fans probably wouldn't. And that's an interesting thing with all this whole Rooney thing. I think sort of fan not pressure, but fan like feeling has really, I think, played a factor in this as well. I think Rooney would have obviously gone eventually. And I'm not saying he was wrongly forced out or anything because the results have not been good enough. But yeah, I don't know. People wanted him out and he's gone. I think this is. But the results speak for themselves, I suppose. So he can't complain in that sense. Um, but yeah, obviously, yeah, Cooper would be the would be great, but I don't think that's too likely. I think someone like a Mowbray is maybe more likely, and I don't think Eustace or Rowett would happen. But I'd be okay with it if it did. But no, I don't want Bruce. I don't want Warnock. I don't want Allardyce. And that's not me because I'm not saying because they're dinosaurs and because they're old managers and whatever. I'm not. It's not that I don't like. Well, it is a bit, but like I just I think we need someone fresher and a bit younger and so yeah, no, that wouldn't be my cup of tea. Although I say that, I don't know how old Mowbray is, but that age isn't the point. You know what I mean? It's like we need someone with fresh ideas, I think,
Yeah.
rather than these. Um, so yeah, and yeah, I think that's yeah, Rooney. That's here we are, 83 days later. What a character arc this podcast has had already. Three managers
Yeah,
in
I
less
know.
than
It's been
20
amazing,
episodes.
isn't it?
Is yeah, this is our 20th episode. This is, and we're on to our third. We're going on to our third manager in that time. Which is like a mad stat, Callum, related to Blues.
Yeah, go on, hit me.
Yes, this is a slight recycled one of one I used a few months ago. But with our next manager, Lucas Jukovic, assuming he gets on the pitch once under the new manager, will have played under 11 separate permanent managers at Blues. 11 separate permanent managers from 2016 to 2024, so in 8 years. And if you don't believe me, he was signed by Rowett, made permanent under. He signed on loan by Rowett, was made permanent under Zola. Um, and then who else did we have? We had Redknapp, Cottrell, Monk, Clotet, Karanka, Bowyer, Eustace, Rooney, and whoever's next. 11 managers in that time, which is remarkable. That must be some kind of record in like world football. I don't know. That's a crazy stat. But yeah. So yeah, I don't know if
That's
you
one
have
for the
a
stat men for definite.
yeah. I want credit for it though. Come up with that one. But yeah, yeah, I don't really have much else to add, Carl. I don't know if you have much more to say on it all.
No, I think that probably wraps us up for this sort of mini-sode. I'm sure
Yeah,
when a new manager is announced, we'll be on the on the record button behind the mics, ready to go.
yeah, I'm sure we will be. And obviously we'll be keeping a close eye on it all. But yeah, to summarise, as I say, it's all just a bit of a shame. It's a huge shame, a huge shame. I really got behind. I tried to really get behind it, and the optimism. I really liked how Rooney spoke in his interviews, and but it just from minute one, for like it's never looked like working. Defensively, we've been very poor, and even from that whole game, the first home game, it wasn't. You know, when a new manager comes in, it should the first home game, a night game as well. It should be this big, a big event. And the fact we didn't just lose, we went down with a real damp squib, and the fans clearly weren't behind him. And not behind him, but they weren't behind, just the whole thing, and people weren't comfortable with it. Um, and the results haven't helped. We in 15 games, we've conceded 30 goals, only scored 15. In 4 of our last 5 games, we've conceded 3 goals, which is just completely unsustainable. And I think the team does actively look worse, so it all adds up, and I think it was inevitable in the end. Um, but let's see where we go from here. Let's see who comes in, and we'll obviously hope maybe by our next episode we'll have got a permanent manager in, and we'll be right on the case with that and react to that and see how he gets on in the next chapter of the club. But yeah, never a dull moment. I really thought when like the new era, the American era started, we'd kind of not moved on from this, but like I thought these sort of years of real drama are maybe could have slowed down a bit, and it really hasn't at all yet. Um, so yeah, interesting times. Um, but yeah, I think that's all I have, Cal.
Yeah, if you have enjoyed today's episode, do subscribe on whatever podcasting platform that you're on. Leave the 5-star reviews. We'll probably be back next week talking about the FA Cup in a bit of a more of a normal episode.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, cheers for taking the time to listen to this. Obviously, very interested to hear anyone's thoughts on it in the comments or on Twitter or anything like that. So yeah, thanks for listening and cheers for taking the time out, Callum. And I'm sure we'll catch up next week.
See you next week, Dan. Up the Villa.
Get on the Villa, keep right on, and see you next time.